Hi, hello, welcome back to Reviews with Julian, and yes, I am still wearing my vest sweater combo, although I think I might remove the sweater. Today we're going to be talking about a book that, once again, I'm the last person to weigh in on, but I kind of did that on purpose. I really didn't want to try to wade in when all of the big discourse was first coming about this book, and the second book is coming out at some point here, so that's hype. Now you can finally find out, because I know you were waiting with bated breaths, what Julian thought of Iron Widow. Let us read the blurb on Goodreads, shall we? The boys of the... Oh my goodness. I listened to the audiobook and I still like seeing the words. I'm not sure I know how to pronounce them. The boys of Huaxia, I'm probably fucking that up, dream of pairing up with girls to pilot chrysalises, giant transforming robots that can battle the mech aliens that lurk beyond the Great Wall. It doesn't matter that the girls often die from the mental strain. When 18-year-old Zetian offers herself up as a concubine pilot, it's to assassinate the ace male pilot responsible for her sister's death. But she gets her vengeance in a way nobody expected. She kills him through the psychic link between pilots and emerges from the cockpit unscathed. She is labeled an Iron Widow, a much feared and much silenced kind of female pilot who can sacrifice boys to power up the chrysalis instead. To tame her unnerving yet invaluable mental strength, she is paired up with Li Shimin, the strongest and most controversial male pilot of place name. But now that Zetian has a taste of power, she will not cower so easily. She will miss no opportunity to leverage her combined might and infamy to survive attempt after attempt on her life, until she can figure out exactly why the pilot system works in such a misogynist way, and stop more girls from being sacrificed. Alrighty, so many of you may be familiar with this one because the author is a pretty popular YouTuber, Xiran Jay Zhao. And I have watched some videos on her channel, but I'm not a follower of hers, so I don't have a horse in this game. I'm not here to like stroke her ego or be like, yes, she's my favorite YouTuber and I love her book because. I'm ambivalent towards her, I am neutral towards her. I do think that this book got a lot of backlash because she's a YouTuber, and while I completely agree with you that there are a lot of YouTubers who think that they should write a book and definitely should not, doesn't mean that every single YouTuber that writes a book is gonna be bad at it or that their book is going to suck. And I'm not just saying that as a YouTuber myself who writes books, although I was a person who wrote books before YouTube, and I think a lot of the problem runs into where we have YouTubers who do YouTube for a while, become popular, and then think that that means that they should write a book. I think that's where we run into the issue more. But anyway, a lot of people read this book and either loved it or hated it, and I think that has to do a little bit more with the author and her presence on the internet than necessarily the quality of the book. That is just a guess on my part, and just like looking at the reviews, it's a vibe I kind of get. But Julian, what did you think of the book? Well, I knew a little bit about it going in, so I was prepared for some of the things that I knew I wasn't going to like, and as such, I didn't dislike those things as much as I was worried that I would. So let's go through my usual rundown of things, characters, plot, world building, and prose, and go from there. And my newest segment, what can we learn from this book? So characters, I knew going in, which is good, that the main character was going to be the angry, righteous, feminine rage archetype, which some people really love. And you'd think that I would love that archetype as well, but actually I don't, which is weird. Like, the righteous feminine rage is not actually one of my personal favorite tropes, which you'd think I would love as I gesture vaguely at everything, because I too hate the world and think it sucks. But there's something about it that reads as a little bit like not genuine to me, and I had the same problem with this book, though it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. People had me believing that this character was wandering around screaming in the face of and punching every man that she saw. No, that was not happening. Yes, she did get in some men's faces, and yes, I think she did punch somebody, but it wasn't as bad as like the reviews had me thinking it was going to be. She had other modes besides pissed. Pissed was a main one. but she could do other things. So we have the lead character who is a very poor girl from a poor province, and her sister, who does not get a personality, which is too bad, went away to be a concubine pilot and was killed not even in the cockpit. She was just straight up murdered by the asshole of a pilot she was like assigned to. So Zetian has sworn vengeance for some reason, unclear. Like we're really left to just fill in the blanks as far as their sisterly relationship. There's no real evidence of what kind of relationship they had, except for like the rest of her family, who are just the most cartoonishly evil family you could think of. So I'm like, if her sister was kind to her, I would like to see that in some flashbacks or some memories or something. Because if the sister had a personality, that would really help us understand her vengeance quest a little bit more. But anyway, she turns down a very handsome boy, who I will be calling Rich Boy, who wants to marry her, and she runs off to murder this guy and succeeds. Good for her. And it turns out that she has a really, really strong spirit level, which is basically how much chi she has in her body, and so she can control the giant mechs that are fighting aliens. Because yes, this book is basically Pacific Rim meets Digimon. This book is every 90s kid cartoon from Japan that ever existed. This is a love letter to 90s kids cartoons that we all watched on like Saturday mornings, eating our sugary cereals. And that's a little bit of an issue. We'll talk about that later. Let's keep focusing on characters. So she turns down the rich boy, who is like, I love you, you're the best thing ever. And he has been the one who has been like helping her, teaching her to read, being kind to her. Not her sister, who I feel like that would be a better relationship, but the sister doesn't matter, and she doesn't get a personality. She's just literally a plot point. Main character, she goes there, she pilots mech, she turns out to be as strong or stronger than the boys, and so they put her with the other character, the other male character, who I call Warrior Poet, because that's what he is. He is like this super bad criminal who killed his family, except for also he writes poetry, and he is a sweetheart, and he has soul pain, but also he'll snap your neck. You know, one of those kind of guys.
You play the ghost of a dream of a memory of a cyborg warrior trying to find his dead wife inside a poem.
君、パスポート持ってる?
And it turns out that they are a matched pair, which means that they can pilot together as a cooperative team instead of him having to drain all of her life force every time they go into battle, which is what happens to most of the other women. So they have a super powerful mech for themselves, which is the Crimson Bird, I want to say, because all of them are animals and all of them can transform, and this is the way that they are like Digimon. At one point in the beginning, I was like listening to this, and one of them transformed into a giant creature with guns for hands, and I'm like, oh, that's just a Digimon. That's just completely... I keep getting distracted from characters because honestly, the characters are one of the weaker points of this book. Mostly Zetian is angry and is vengeful because of world building reasons, and her boys are hot and feminist, which is an issue that I have, just kind of, again, world building bleeding into character here. You probably heard, this world that the characters live in is extremely, extremely misogynist. Like, next level misogyny, where women are completely, like, not even second-class citizens, they're like third-class citizens. It doesn't matter if they get killed to fight in the giant robots, nobody cares. Women are not given an ounce of respect whatsoever. That's fine. Like, I knew that going in, that was going to be how it is, and if you tell me that's how the world in your fantasy book with giant stompy mechs and aliens is, I'm like, okay, that's how it is. Fine. I'm not going to sit here and dissect, like, is this misogyny as realistic as it could be? Like, it's a fantasy book. Whatever, that's what the author wanted. And there are lots of things to talk about with misogyny within the book. Not just in Western cultures, but like all over the world. The two guys that she ends up with are just feminist somehow, and it's never really clear why. It seems really, really convenient that she ended up with the two only men in the entire world, as far as we can see, that have like weird ideas about women being people. And that runs me up against the problem that I had with Xiran as well. She comes from a province where, you know, she's very, very poor and her family is cartoonishly abusive, terrible, awful people. And that's basically so you don't care what happens to them because, you know, eventually bad things are going to happen to them and you have to be on board for that. Because if they weren't cartoonishly evil, you might be like, oh, that's bad that she did that to her family. But no, you want her to do bad things to her family because they are awful. So she grew up in this situation. She grew up abused. She's had her feet bound, which, again, that was a really good aspect, that this character is disabled. She is disabled throughout. Like, this is actually amazing disability rep, and I really enjoyed how it was handled. And in fact, the character spends like half of the book in a wheelchair. So if you're looking for a book that's kind of cheesy and over the top, but has amazing disability rep, throw Fourth Wing out the nearest window and pick up Iron Widow. So she has grown up in this lifestyle that would not lend itself to her becoming a hyper-feminist vigilante. And yet she just simply is. And the question is never really answered where that came from, where she got these ideas from. It's just innately part of herself that somehow she is like willing and able to do what is necessary and like wants to fight, where every other woman is just like beaten down by the system. Somehow she has like this indomitable desire inside of her to fight the system and know her worth and whatever. And like, that's fine, but I don't know where it comes from. And again, I think it's because I butt up against wish fulfillment where some people don't. I prefer, then this is just a preference, I prefer a character who maybe has a similar background or issues to me to be more grounded and realistic in those issues. And so when Xiran comes from an abusive background, I can tell you that people who are abused growing up tend to make themselves smaller, tend to be people pleasers, do not tend to like grow up to be huge revolutionaries pushing back and just have all of this rage inside them. Now, maybe some of them do. Maybe some people who are abused come out of it with like righteous rage and are stronger somehow. And that is a very common narrative in books, especially with female characters. Something horrible happens to her and that makes her strong somehow. Instead of what happens usually when people are abused and traumatized, it actually makes them want to like make themselves smaller instead of larger. So like, I get that that's the wish fulfillment of people who have gone through things like her character has gone through, of being like, ah yes, my pain makes me stronger, like Xiran. Personally, again, personal preference, I prefer a grounded character who behaves realistically and still finds a way to succeed versus one who is just sort of inexplicably badass. It just didn't resonate with me as somebody who could maybe relate to Xiran a little bit more than I would like to. But anyway, yes, aside from Xiran being weirdly like feminist and her two boyfriends being weirdly feminist for no good goddamn reason, if you ignore that, if you just take them as they are, treat them like old school anime characters who don't have a lot of personality and a lot of background, you can enjoy it. And let's just get right on over into world building, because this book is extremely derivative, super derivative, but it wears that on its sleeve and it wears it with pride and a smile. Like, this book isn't trying to sit here and give us the same tropes we've seen a million times and pretend that they're the ones who invented it. This book is like, look at all these things that you love from your childhood, and by you I mean millennials, because this book is for us, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Look at all of these things. I am going to unashamedly give you those things. This book is like sparkly candy. If you liked Power Rangers, if you like Digimon, if you like Pacific Rim, or giant mecha shows in general, you're probably gonna love the hell out of Iron Widow, because it takes that cheese and it just revels in it, and it is not ashamed to revel in that cheese. Now, while I was reading it, did I every now and then stop and go, this is really silly? Yes. But then I could remind myself, but you like silly. And then I could carry on enjoying my experience. Don't go into this book if you're looking for something particularly deep. But that's okay. Not everything we read has to be deep. And let me tell you how refreshing it was to read like tropes that are definitely tropes and things that are definitely very derivative, but aren't the same thing that we've been reading 8,000 times already in every single romantasy that is out there. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. And then of course, we have the plot, main character, piloting mechs. They randomly, the Hunger Games is in here, and my friend told me like the Hunger Games, and I was like, oh, expecting like the Hunger Games part of it, some kind of competition, but that's not the part of the Hunger Games that's in here. The thing that's in here is the part of the Hunger Games at the Capitol, where, you know, Katniss has to like politically maneuver and do all these TV spots and everything. So the giant mecha pilots are also celebrities. So not only are they warriors, they're like, they have to maintain like this level of celebrity as well. So Xiran and her boy have to go on like TV spots and like photo shoots and public appearances and all of that stuff, which was a little bit unexpected. It was fine, but it was like, oh, okay, the book is doing this now. I came here for the giant robot battles, but I guess. And of course, there's always plenty of danger and plenty of action to keep us moving. Everybody wants her dead, and they also want her co-pilot dead. He's this dangerous prisoner guy, and the only reason that he's still alive is because he can pilot the most powerful mech, and now they can pilot it together. And so they're like, well, we need you to help fight the aliens, I guess, so we can't just kill you off. Now that we're talking about the plot, though, I think we can get into one of the major problems for this book, and that is the pacing. You've probably seen in reviews that people are saying that this book is paced too fast, and I agree. Everything just kind of happens. There's no lead up, and there's not really any cool down. It's just like go, 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 go. Like, a lot of people have complained about the romance, and so I was really ready for it to barely be anything. And honestly, the romance was more than I thought I was gonna get. You probably know by now if you know anything about this book, because it's in the marketing as far as I know. There is a polyamorous throuple. The love triangle is a true triangle, meaning everybody ends up together, and I really enjoyed that aspect, and it was really sweet getting to see like this throuple come together and the boys come together with each other, and I don't really completely understand why they like her so much, but whatever. They like each other a lot. Like, the boys are really cute together. So we've got the throuple going on, and the rich boy from the beginning, he shows back up, and he's able to help them in their robot with his chi. So we've got that whole thing going on, but of course they're constantly in danger because their rivals want them dead. With all of the pacing just like bam, 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 bam. So we've got the romance happening, we've got the fame happening, we've got robot battles happening, we've got Xiran trying to like secure her position as this badass warrior woman happening, and like at one point they do a torture and murder scene with a character who I'm sure deserved it, because every man who's not her two boyfriends is evil. But I was like, what? Where did this come from? They waterboard him and then murder him, and I didn't even remember who he was. I was talking to my friend about this, and she's read the book and she quite liked it, and she was like, well, I'm sure he deserved it. And I'm like, I'm sure he did, but who is he? They waterboarded and killed a man in a YA book, and I don't even remember who he is. And it wasn't that it was out of character necessarily, it's that it came out of nowhere and then was forgotten about immediately afterward. It was the pacing that was the problem for me. Not that they did it, just the pacing of it. I have no, what, that might as well happen, I guess. But then, of course, we get to the big climactic battle, and I'm not gonna spoil any of it because a lot of shit goes down, but it was very entertaining to listen to. I am a very, very visual reader, so it was happening like a whole movie in my head, and honestly, this really should be an anime instead of a book. I'll be honest with you, if this was a visual medium, it would be mwah, 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 so good. We wouldn't even mind the shallowness because we could actually visually see the cool mecha battles happening. The pacing really hampered this book, and I think that is the main thing that is the reason that a lot of people are struggling with it. Like, a lot of the other issues that it has could be cured with slower pacing. There are so many elements in this book and not enough room for them. And now we get into, Julian talks about the publishing industry, the thing that you didn't know that you signed up for. Because this book is traditionally published, and it is a YA helmed by a female lead with a female author who is not white, and it's a debut. And all of that is a recipe for publishers to say, your book has to be this long and no longer. Trust me. Especially with debuts, publishers are looking to have it be as short as possible because they don't want to spend money on pages if it's not going to sell. And so I desperately want the Snyder cut of this book. No doubt the author had to hack this to pieces, trying to get it short enough to satisfy the publishers. That is my assumption. I don't know that. We haven't talked, but like that's just a vibe that I get because everything is so rushed. So since the filming of this, I have had it confirmed for me by sources that it is indeed, that she did indeed have to hack it to pieces, and the OG version was much, much longer. So I feel pretty vindicated that I could tell that just from reading this book, that this was certainly not the author's ideal version of this book. Honestly, and I was talking to my friend about this, I really wish, and this is going to sound like, of course, Julian would say that because she's self-published, but this book, I think, would have benefited way more from being self-published. If Xiran had taken the fact that she's got a fairly large audience on YouTube, and instead of trying to use that to get publishers' attention, she used her money and her influence to get her own editors, her own cover designer, and she published this book as long as it needed to be, and also she made it adult. Because I think the other thing that's hampering this book is that it's young adult. And here's the thing, if you write a book like this and you are a woman, it is going to be shoved into young adult whether you like it or not. If you go the traditional publishing route. This is going to sound really cynical. People are going to be in my comments denying that it's true, but listen, it's true. A book like this, written by a woman, was never going to be an adult book, and it should be, because then we could have all of the brutality we really want. Like, I am kind of surprised that they showed a torture and murder scene in this YA book, but you could tell there could be so much more. Plus, if you make this adult, then you can market it to the people who it's obviously a love letter to, because it's not a love letter to Gen Z. It's a love letter to millennials. It's for us. It's for people like me who grew up watching those badly dubbed animes on TV on Saturday morning. It is so steeped in all of that culture and just wants to revel and roll around in it, and I want to join it. It's really hamstrung by the fact that it's YA and that it is traditionally published. I really want to see what this could have been if the author had gone and self-pubbed it as an adult book. Now, maybe that's not what she ever wanted. Maybe she really did want this to be YA the whole time. I don't know why, because it's for adults, really. It's for us. That's not for kids today. They're probably like, what is this? No, thank you. Yeah, so that was my tangent about the publishing industry and how I really wish that this book had been self-published. I think it would have been better for it. There are some books that I genuinely think are better off traditionally published, and some books that I genuinely think are better off self-published. There is a reason for either way that you go, and there are benefits to either of those angles, and the benefits, I think, definitely outweigh, like, perhaps the limitations of marketing, for example, if she had self-published this book. But, alright, what about the prose? The prose are fine. I'd be reading along just fine, and then every now and then I'd butt up against a pretty cringy, awkward sentence, so it's definitely good. Especially if this is her first attempt, although I think she has written things before this, she just didn't get them published. For a first attempt, or near that, pretty solid prose. Not amazing, but okay. And finally, what can we learn from this book? Well, if you're looking to write something that's cheesy and tropey and loves itself for it, I think this would definitely be the book for you. However, if we're looking to learn from the negatives of this book, definitely looking at the pacing and how the pacing definitely affects every other aspect of this book, from character to plot to everything. The pacing is what is keeping this book from being as great as it could be. So when we are doing our own writing, we might need to look at our own pacing and be like, is this going too quickly? Do I need to have more of this? And that's what getting beta readers and developmental editors is good for, is helping you figure that stuff out. Alright, this has been a lot of talking about Iron Widow, but please let me know if you enjoyed it or if you have read it. I'm probably the last person in the world to have read it, but I did enjoy my time with it. Even though I have a lot of critiques for it, it was very fun. It was just fun to read and revel in all of the 90s kid goofiness. And I do love that it has a well portrayed disabled main character. I'm really interested to see what happens with book 2, and I will definitely be picking it up. Don't forget you can check out any of my books, available now on Amazon. As I mentioned, I'm a developmental editor, so you can hire me now on Fiverr. And you can support me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month and get cool perks like getting your name read at the end of each video, as well as exclusive content never seen here on the regular channel. And if you liked this book review, I have a ton of book reviews, so you're bound to find something else that you want to listen to. All of them arranged in a nice handy dandy playlist for you. And I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Have fun storming the castle.
Think it'll work?
It would take a miracle. Bye-bye.
My patrons and I always have fun storming the castle. Patrons like Sarah, Lisa, Amanda, Jenny, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, Rennie, Jesper, Zaire, Shelby, Ray, Callison, Anne Sophie, Patrick, Belle, Light Julie, Hidden Glade, Kit, Merween, Sophia, Ashley, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Melissa, Afra, Deborah, Rita, Alyssa, Celia, Amanda, Lafone, KJ, Jessica, Caitlin, Ursula, Robin, Jojo Bookish, Bear, Kirsten, Maria Mooney, Kohikaro, Kira, Sam, Haley, Julius the Nice Dragon, Pansing Pony, Roma, Veda, 78 Kilograms of Shade, Kat, Sarah M, Nico, Sunny Shy, Bird Anonymous, July, Martha Baggins, SB Boots, and Ruin, Queen of Oblivion.